Y'all hear me okay? Oh, yeah, I can hear me. Call to order this regular meeting of the City of Pearland Planning and Zoning Commission at 6:41 p.m. First item of business is certify the quorum. All commissioners are present and accounted for except for Commissioner Earls, and I believe that he's not present tonight, right? Not even online. Okay. So we do have a quorum though. Moving on to the consent. Oh, sorry, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. For tonight's hearings, we'll have a call to order for each item. Then there will be a staff report followed by applicant presentation, after which the public will have an opportunity to speak in either support or opposition. When that happens, please state your name and address for the record. Be brief and to the point within a 3-minute time frame. And then following those comments will be the commission and staff discussion. The commission will vote to recommend approval as presented, approval with conditions, denial of the request or to table the item. And then city council hearing of the zone change cases are tentatively scheduled for July 12th. One thing to amend in this is that the vote is just for the zone change items. There will be no vote for the comment, input, and discussion for the conditional use permit items. On for tonight's hearings, we have 3 zone cases and 2 conditional use permits. The first is a planned development in Old Town area. The second is for the Stonebridge planned development amendment. The third is a zone change in the English Lakes Drive area. The fourth is for an auto wash along Alice Street, and the fifth is for new use in the market area. And back over to you, Chairperson Cade.
Thank you. Moving on in our agenda to the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda. The approval of excused absence for Commissioner Isenberg from the June 7th meeting, and the approval of the minutes from the June 7th meeting. Can I get a motion in a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Thank y'all. Get this closer to me. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. Item A. Hold on one second. Commissioner Fuertes is recusing himself from this item. Give him just a minute. Okay, he's running. Okay, we're going to move on. Item A, consideration and possible action. This is zone change application, zone number 21-00006. The request by Alan Mueller, applicant, on behalf of T&B Alexander Family Limited Partnership, Sue Morrison 2012 Trust, and Mark Morrison Trustee owners for approval for a proposed planned development PD district to accommodate a residential development consisting of approximately 65 single-family residences with a mixture of bungalow and row house products within the Pearland Old Town site on 3 separate tracts totaling 5.6 acres of land. The general location, tract A1, is located on the west side of Galveston and north of East Pear Street. Tract B1 is located on the west side of Galveston and north of East Walnut Street. And tract C1 is located west of South Grand Boulevard and east of South Houston Avenue. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I got a motion from Commissioner Dansby and a second from Commissioner Isenberg. Staff report?
Thank you, Chair. Let me introduce Mohammed Barima. He's our senior planner who will be discussing this case. Mohammed, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. Madam Chair, members of the Commission, good evening. This first request is for approval of a zone change from the Old Town Site Mixed Use District, also known as OT-MEU, to planned development with a base zoning of OT-MEU district on 3 separate tracts of land totaling approximately 5.6 acres, located generally within the Old Town Site district. And the intent is to accommodate a proposed residential development consisting of single-family detached homes with a mixture of bungalow and row houses served by a alley loaded garages. You may recall back in March of 2000 of this year that the City Council and the Planning Zoning Commission had a joint public hearing, a joint workshop, sorry, and as required by the Unified Development Code for all planned development applications, and in advance of the public hearing that we're having tonight. During that joint workshop, the City Council and the Commission had provided the applicants some positive feedback, support for the project. So far, since we have sent the notices to adjacent property owners, we have received 3 inquiries about this request and 2 letters of opposition from the residents of the Baker's Landing subdivision. It is located on the south side of Walnut Street. Next slide is a zoning map showing the property located within that overall Old Town site and zone OTMU. As you can see, some of the properties on the east side of development are zone general business. But generally speaking, these are 3 separate tracks, even though some of those tracks are kind of divided by existing alleys. But generally speaking, 3 different tracks. The next slide is the future land use plan, and it shows that the property is designated as a village district, and that is intended to allow a mix of residential, retail, office, and public or semi-public uses within the Old Town town site. The next slide is the proposed design plan for this development, and reflects a development of approximately 65 single-family residences with mixture, as we said, of bungalow and row houses. All the homes will be served by the alley. Garages are located along the alley, which promotes a walkable streetscape with front porches and the porches pushed towards the street. The project renderings also feature some of those concepts of the bungalow and the row houses. Some of the building materials include wood and cement, fireboard siding. The bungalow product will be 1-story single family homes on a 35 by 25, 35 by 125 foot lot, and expected to range between 14 square feet to about 2,000 square feet with a detached alley loaded garage. The row houses are 2-story single family homes on a 25 by 125 foot lot, expected to range inside between 1,600 square feet to about 24,000 square feet. The next slide, sorry about that. This is actually the design plan here, and you can see the darker color are some of those bungalows, and the light ones are, so you have those bungalows and row houses intermixed in the same tract. Some of those lots are 25, some of them are 35, so the range between 25 to 35. Next slide is some kind of highlights of the proposed PD provisions, and as was indicated in the previous joint workshop, that Some of those deviations from the base zoning, the OTRMU, I'm sorry, the base zoning will be OTR, which is the Old Town Site Residential District. Some of those deviations include like lot width, as typically the lot width for the residential districts is 50 feet. This will include anywhere between 25 to 35. Minimum would be 25. It also include deviations from setbacks and things like that. So this kind of show some of those reductions in the front setback. Example, the front setback on the R district is 20. This will have only 10. The idea is to push the front porches towards the street. The next slide is some views of these three separate tracks. The first one being looking from the side of Houston Street. That's one track. The other one is the same track, but it's being looked at from the opposite side, which is from the Grand Boulevard side. So the first two, for the top two views are taken for the same side, but just from the two opposite directions, from the two streets that surrounded it from east and west. The bottom slides are views of the other two tracks. The one at the bottom left is looking from the corner of Galveston and Pear Street, looking towards the northwest, towards the site. Broadway will be back in the background behind those commercial buildings there. The bottom right is a view from the northwest corner of Walnut Street and Galveston, looking back towards the property. This is also looking north towards the northwest. The next slide should be the conformity matrix, and the proposed PD is consistent with the comp plan. As we said, it's the village district, the thoroughfare plan as well. A lot of those streets are existing within the old town sites are designated as local streets. And generally speaking, for utilities, some of those utilities may have to be upsized, and this will be worked out through a separate development agreement with the city, and that will be executed to take care of these utility upsizing and extensions. The criteria of approval is the next slide, and that is showing this proposed PD is consistent with all of these criteria for a PD. And the last slide is the recommendation. Staff finds this proposed PD is consistent with the approval criteria of the Unified Development Code for establishing planned development. It's also consistent with the intent and vision for the Old Town site and should not detract from the enjoyment and the value of the neighboring properties. Staff recommends approval of the proposed PD with the underlying zoning district. There's a mistake there. It's the OTR, not OTMU. Subject to the regulations and conditions contained in the PD. And the last slide is that the Planning and Zoning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council on this proposed zone change after the public hearing and the discussion. The Commission shall vote to either recommend approval as presented, approval with modifications, deny or table the request. And that concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving now, we have opportunity for public comments on this.
Should be the applicant presentation. And
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Mueller's here for that.
Sorry, Mr. Mueller. Very sorry. I was worried about missing public comments and I missed you. I apologize.
That's no problem. Very important. So Alan Mueller with Gromax Development here representing Sullivan Brothers this evening. We'll be brief. As Mohammed said, the PD that we've presented is consistent with the workshop that you all saw a couple of months ago. That was the intent to make sure that the PD did match what we talked about back then. And so we have, in the meantime, we have also been working with several staff members and City Council on the cost sharing agreement for some of the utilities that are going to need to be improved. But as far as the PD this evening, we are appreciative of all the work the staff has done to help us through this process. And like I said, we think it conforms to the vision of the old town site, and it matches up with what you saw in the workshop. So we're not going to belabor it with another presentation, but we do have Paul Groman is here this evening as well, and we have Scott Burr and Julie Glass. If you have questions, Scott, so we'll just here for questions, but we'll rest at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments now, Lawrence?
Yes, ma'am. And I believe the first person that I had signed up was first
Mr. Duff.
Mr. Duff. He signed up electronically and he spoke at City Council. I wasn't sure if he wanted to speak here for the Planning and Zoning Commission because he did say for the zone change request, this specific one. So, Mr. Duff.
I'm William Duff. I live at 3208 Nottingham Street in Pearland 77581. And I rise in support of existing Pearland City ordinances under Chapter 2, Section 2.4, remaining in full force and effect for Old Town Site Residential District zoned OT-R. I refer to Houston Chronicle 2004 and 2011 interviews with now Pearland Mayor Emeritus Tom Reed. Direct quotes. The major challenges today are transportation issues, managing the growth, and addressing the flooding and drainage issues. The city feels that as we grow, we can be both a beautiful city and a city that people feel is their home and their place of businesses. When a new subdivision comes in, you've got to realize that they have to meet with some pretty stringent requirements. The developer has to retain water in the subdivision with on-site detention and release it after the creek has gone down. From a flooding standpoint, we are not permitted to flood anybody else. No developer can come in and build and have water run off to some other subdivisions or other local facilities. They are required by our ordinances and by law to retain the water on their own site. We do require on-site detention. Part of our building codes require that we emphasize and encourage larger lots. We are requiring in our development code that a builder has to reserve a certain amount of acres of land for park space within the development. Based on certain number of houses built, you've got to have so many acres of land that are set aside inside the subdivision. And so again, I rise in support of Pearland City ordinances under Chapter 2, Section 2.4, remaining in full force and effect for Old Town Site Residential District zoned as OT-R. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Duff. Our next speaker is Mr. Paul Eskine.
I'm representing Passat Enterprises and Houston Aircraft Instruments, which is located at 2519 Park Avenue. We have some concerns about the alleyway, the traffic, and the infrastructure. I noticed in the packet on page 13, it states that alley right-of-ways were dedicated in the original Pearland town site plat, but are not developed adjacent to any of these tracks. This is not correct. At our location, the alley is behind our shop and was concreted by us when we moved there and is used daily. After our property, it is asphalt and then has an entrance on Pear Street. Our employees and the employees at the building next door use the alley to arrive and depart daily, and the alley is used to back out of the parking spaces per the UDC. Waste management uses the alley to empty the garbage, and we have large vehicles from shipping companies, uniform companies, and at times 18-wheelers that drop off supplies. Previously, the developer said they normally have alleys one way. This will not work for our company. The alley has always been used both ways. It seems that the developer is using the PD to institute rules on the alleyways, which are currently being used and have been for some time. We moved to the site in 2006, and so we have been there for 15 years. The company next to us even longer. We are extremely concerned about the PD giving the rights to the developer on a currently used alley. Number two, We are concerned with so many alley-located garages that our parking lot, which is connected to the alley, will be used as a major cut-through. Instead of homeowners going south to Walnut or north to Pear, they'll cut through our parking lot for a quick route to Park Avenue. And number three, the infrastructure is not very good in this area. The developer wants to work with the city to increase and redevelop the water and sewer lines in the area. The southeast quadrant drainage plan does not take into account several drainage problems. The intersection of Pear and Park floods during heavy rains, then the sewers back up into the homes and businesses. I do not think the southeast drainage plan has any correction for the Pear and Park intersection and the homes and businesses along Park. The plan does show for Galveston, Grand, and Houston, but not for Park Avenue. My business has never flooded, but sewer has backed up several times. As I am sure the developer plans on raising the elevations, drainage is of particular interest. When Baker's Landing was developed behind Walnut, the raising of the elevations flooded Warfield Electric. We fear flooding if the new developments are allowed without very strict attention paid to the businesses and homes already on Park Avenue. The field behind our shop, where the homes will be developed, floods during heavy rains. Basically, it is the retention pond. If developed and raised, major infrastructure would need to be improved throughout the area. The road on Park, Grand, and Houston is asphalt and does not have much traffic. The traffic would increase dramatically, and I would think that major infrastructure would have to be developed to not only fix the current problems, but not have problems increase significantly. Overall, we feel these are reasonable concerns. I would appreciate the P&Z board to take this under consideration and make changes where needed to avoid additional and new problems for our businesses, for my business, for other businesses and homes in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's all on this one. Okay. Commissioners, comments or questions?
Ms. Cade, there may have, Chair Cade, there may have been some people who came in after the announcement was to fill out the speaker registration cards. So if you would call just to verify. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who has a public comment on this item? I'll ask again, anybody else that has a comment on this item? Third and final time? Okay. Commissioner Boswell?
Yes, I have several inquiries. The first one, Mohammed, when you presented your presentation and discussed the traffic division making those determinations, do you know when they will have feedback concerning that, if it's going to affect the traffic conditions for that area? And I guess that's kind of a question for any other staff that might know as well.
Thank you, Ms. Boswell. So I know that as we get further along in this development, we're going to refine some of the details about the traffic patterns with the public alley. I know I see Raj on the screen. I don't have everyone else in the panel. So if either Raj or Parviz could take up that question, I would appreciate it.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This is Raz with Engineering Department. We have requested the applicant to provide traffic TIA worksheet to be done, and after TIA worksheet to be determined whether full-blown TIA required or a semi TIA required. That is yet to be determined. But we will not approve the construction of this development without TIA being reviewed and approved by the City Engineering Department.
Okay, thank you. A couple other questions. I noticed one of the citizens came up and spoke to the daily usage of the alleys. And I know that we had that presentation a couple of months ago where we discussed this new development, but was that taken in consideration, that concern that the citizen stated for this new development that we're seeking to approve and move forward with? Because the daily use of that going in both directions was something that I wasn't aware of at the time that that presentation was being made.
Right. So at the end of the day, our utilization of the alleys will have to fall back onto whatever is existing within our code of ordinances for alleyways. As we don't have a lot of alleyways, I'll again pass that back to engineering to make a full comment on, but I would presume that if we were to make a modification to the entryway or exit of an alley, that we would need to, one, understand the traffic flow for that area, and two, to ensure that it wasn't infringing on any existing development and to make accommodations for that.
And I guess the reason I'm asking is because we're taking our comments and our feedback to council, and we're doing that as is or with modifications. So these would be nice things to know if we need to include modifications in any comments or feedbacks that we have for council concerning what we've heard thus far.
No, most assuredly. And we, within our staff comments, representing the Planning and Zoning Commission, will make sure to include that.
Okay.
So that way City Council is aware of it.
Thank you. No further comments or questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Boswell, did you want engineering, the city engineer Raj, to give you a more detailed answer on that? I don't know if I'm going to say that it's better. I don't mean any offense to Martin there.
I will take any information available.
Raj, did you catch that?
Yeah, this is Raz again. The same things applies to that question too, because we have yet to see the traffic engineering analysis that will determine what to be kept and what is to be done, because right now the concept is one way, but I can see that there is potential conflict with the existing access to those alleyways both directions. So that needs to be accounted by our traffic engineer working for a developer to consider and come up with a solution to address those issues.
Mr. Mueller, I noticed that you stepped up to the podium, so you on behalf of the developer may have some ideas about that alleyway.
Yes. First of all, the one-way suggestion, it was just a suggestion. That's typically what Sullivan Brothers has done. Obviously, there's unique situations that need to be looked at, and final decisions haven't been made. And so typically the TIA gets done during the platting process and before the plats get approved. And so, it's like peeling an onion. The first step is the zoning to see if everybody's happy with the land uses in general. And then if you peel that layer, then you start looking at the platting and the construction plans and the TIAs and those sorts of things. So that'll be a step that will follow after this.
Thank you. Commissioner Henry?
I have a question. So since the drainage is going to be a very big issue with these neighbors, can you explain in more detail how you're going to handle the detention since the lot coverage is over the 70%?
Right.
So what is the plan for this?
Right. So several years ago, the city completed a sub-regional detention basin for this quadrant of the Old Town site. It's off of Old Alvin Road. And when they did that, they also built a trunk storm sewer along Walnut Street that is to convey water there. And so as part of our project and the discussions we're having with the city now is we'll need to be building the lateral storm sewers up Galveston, Park, probably Houston. And so again, for this part of town, there's a regional storm sewer detention pond, and we'll have to build the storm sewers to get the water into that pond. And again, that's part of the cost sharing agreement that we're talking with the city about right now.
This is Raz again. I can add to that a little bit more for commissioners. What we did, the city did in Old Town side drainage improvement is like we constructed about 26.2 acre feet detention pond on Old Alvin Road, and that included 22 acres of undeveloped land plus 12 acre of street improvements. So there's almost like 34 acres of land is there is accommodation for 34 acres of land for detention. So we have 26.2 acre feet of detention to provide services to undeveloped land as well as future winding of the streets like Walnut Streets and other streets for future. At the same time, we have also hired, PEDC has hired consulting company to take a look into the drainage system along there. Like Alan Mueller just mentioned, we're going to take a look on Houston, Pear, South Grand, and Galveston Street modification in terms of drainage infrastructure. So they will come up with the drainage infrastructure need for the streets so that the water can be flowed to the Walnut Street drainage system, which has already big trunk system.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Commissioner Isenberg?
Yes, I met with some of the owners out there around that area, and a big concern of theirs is the drainage on the roads, as well as other things. I'm assuming that area out there, as far as the streets and stuff are concerned, they're going to stay as is. They're going to be asphalted roads, or are they going to be brought up to the new standards with using them for a pipeline or a conduit system to get the water away from the homes?
Yeah, no, the current plan is that they would remain asphalt streets, but the roadside ditches would be replaced with underground storm sewer to handle that. And then again, depending on the arrangement with the city, in some places there may be a parallel parking lane added as well. And then that would help convey the water into the storm sewers. But we absolutely understand that drainage is important, and nothing sells houses worse than flooding. So it's certainly not in anybody's interest to exacerbate any problems that are out there right now.
I understand. What about the storms? I mean, the sanitary sewer. They've mentioned that they've had problems out there when they have excess of flow and such.
That's the water lines are generally 2 inches, 2-inch lines. So all of the water lines, potable water lines, will have to be replaced. Most of the sanitary sewer lines are also undersized. They'll need to be replaced. So that's all part of the agreement that we're working with city staff and city council on right now.
Okay. And one more concern. I mean, we're talking about 2 businesses out there that have already gone to great expense and have been using the alleyways since 2004 and beyond. And I would think that they would have some type of legal rights as far as easements and such on that, especially when they've gone out there and they've actually built concrete alleyways out there that y'all would tie into. I mean, I can't imagine y'all redoing those because they look like they're heavy duty because they've had heavy trucks and stuff on them.
And again, not to gloss over details, but I mean, that is something that obviously we'll have to look at when we get into more of the detailed design. For the most part, these alleys are not constructed, and there's just that one section where they are. And so, at the PD level, we're just kind of looking at the generalities of the product and the zoning. But when we get into the details on the engineering, absolutely those specific areas are going to have to be evaluated. And I know the city staff will make sure that we do that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dansby?
No, I just, obviously with Harvey and a litany of other issues that have come up, flooding is huge. And, as mentioned with Baker's Landing being here, and if it did impact existing structures that are on a lower elevation than the new homes, which tends to be the case just because everybody keeps moving that line every year. The flood maps come out and they change the world. So, I just want to make sure, I know you're making a list. You probably already have this on your list. I have no doubt. It's not your first rodeo. So, but, we've got to focus on the obvious elephant in the room. And in my opinion, the flooding is key because, like you said, it's hard to sell a house when people say it floods, and it's for us bankers, it's hard to finance a house when it ever floods. Period.
Absolutely. And just again, I think for many years, I mean, this area has been a priority area for the city to redevelop, and it hasn't redeveloped. And there's a reason that it hasn't redeveloped, which is because you'd think that it's build ready. You got water there, you got sewer, you got streets. You'd think you could just go out there and build, but the truth is all of the utilities that are there are not adequate by today's standards. And so it's probably more expensive to develop here than to develop in a greenfield where you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, when I was on PEDC, I mean, we had an employee specifically hired at one point for Old Town site, and it was definitely running uphill the whole way for him because it's a hard product, and the retail on the bottom and small multifamily or something like that, condos on top was always a product that everybody was interested in, but what kind of office are you going to put down there? Most of the time it's small attorneys or maybe a dental office or something like that don't necessarily bring in good business. We have good business owners there now. We certainly don't want to alienate them. And we want to work with them and around them and satisfy their concerns as much as possible. And if it causes a business to consider moving out of town, I'm having I'm going to have a hard time with that. So, but we've got to bring in a reason for people to come to Old Town site Pearland because we've got specific overlay district there that dictates what can go in, and a Heights or a Old Town Spring or all of this that we have in our mind fits with what Sullivan Brothers and the guys are doing, and we understand that, and that's kind of what we're trying to get to. But we still have to maintain and keep our existing businesses and homeowners that are there in the loop and happy. And if we're able to assist them with flooding and assist them with sewer and other issues, then let's do that. But let's not. We'll do the best we can to keep them from losing anything, and that may be including their business. We don't want that for sure.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. The only thing I had to say was about the traffic impact analysis. I think you said it was requested, or I think who said no, it's in process, and that's I think it's specifically track C is surrounded by school zones. So considering traffic, I would be interested to see the TIA. I guess that's really all I have.
Yeah, we've done the first step, which is what's called the TIA worksheet.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And before platting, we'll do the full TIA.
That's right. Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? No.
As we move on, when this was put on the table, I think the motion was just to put it on the table. It didn't reference moving to make a positive or a negative recommendation. So if staff comment and P&Z questions and comments are finished, if there's a motion to be a little bit more specific in what you want to do with your recommendation, followed by a second, you could take a vote on that, and then I believe we may need to recess for a moment.
Okay. So do you want us to say what our recommendation would be?
Well, it's consideration and possible action, so we need to know what that action is going to be. So if somebody wants to say, move to recommend approval of the zone change, that's what we would need, followed by a second. Otherwise, right now it's just on the table, but it's not on the table for or against.
Okay.
I propose a recommendation for approval.
This is Commissioner Hendricks. I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 5-0.
I was going to say that's 5-0 with one recusal.
With one recused, with Commissioner Fortes recused.
And then, Mr. Coker, did you indicate that they were ready to come in for? Thank you.
Okay. As the Planning and Zoning Commission has our meeting tonight that's overlapping with the Pearland City Council, we're going to need to recess our meeting for just a moment to allow City Council to come back in from their executive session and finish their special meeting agenda. Just to be clear and make sure everybody understands what's happening here, in order to comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act, with the governor's disaster declaration and corresponding orders that pertain to COVID-19 pandemic, regarding recording and broadcasting meetings to allow for remote participation. Both Pearland City Council and Pearland Planning and Zoning Commission have their meetings scheduled in this room tonight. So we're going to recess while council comes in and finishes their meeting. Please, Planning and Zoning Commissioners, don't wander off, because we're going to come right back up and finish our meeting. But we do need to clear the dais, and please be patient. We'll resume our meeting as soon as we can, and as soon as council concludes the meeting, we'll return to the dais and resume our meeting. I'm recessing the Planning and Zoning meeting at what time, Brandon? At 7:21. We'll return as soon as possible.
All right, City Council is returning to open session from our executive session at 7:24 p.m. Moving to new business item number 1, consideration and possible action regarding the evaluation of city managers.
Mayor, I move that we make the adjustments to the city manager's compensation as discussed in exec session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, if you call for the vote.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar? Member Camcar?
Alex, unmute yourself.
There he goes.
Member Camcar? How do you vote?
Aye.
There he is.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0.
All right, moving forward in our agenda, we're moving to adjournment. We will adjourn at 7:26 p.m.
Okay, everybody, thank you for being patient. Now that City Council has finished, we're going to resume our meeting at 7:30 p.m. Moving on to item B in our agenda, is consideration and possible action, zone change application, zone number 21-00007. This is a request by Paul Groman, applicant, on behalf of Musgrave Groman Ventures LTD owner, for approval of an amendment to the Stonebridge Planned Development PD District to accommodate a proposed residential development consisting of 57 single-family residential lots on approximately 32.667 acres of land. The general location is the eastern end of Stablestone Lane. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
A second, Commissioner Dansby.
Thank you. I got a motion from Commissioner Boswell and a second from Commissioner Dansby. Do we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Again, let me introduce Mohammed Barima, our senior planner. Take it away, Mohammed.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Madam Chair. This request is for approval of an amendment to the Stonebridge Planned Development District to accommodate a proposed residential development consisting of single-family residential lots with a base zoning of single-family residential 4 district on approximately 32.6 acres of land. We have received 3 inquiries about this request, but no letters of opposition or support to this request. The zoning map in the next slide shows this property being part of the Stonebridge Planned Development. I'll talk a little bit about the history of this site. As you can see it in the yellow, highlighted with the yellow color there. The rest of the area with the red boundary is the Stonebridge PD, which was developed and approved back in 2004, 2005. The subject property is surrounded by, I'm talking about the 32-acre tract, is surrounded by a residential subdivision to the north, which is the Highland Glen PD, and with another residential subdivision and open space to the northeast. And that's also another section of the Highland Glen PD. It is surrounded by strip commercial development to the southwest, and that was developed as part of the Stonebridge Planned Development. And then on the south side is undeveloped tract and is zone R3. The future land use map designate this property as a low density residential, and which is intended to accommodate residential zoning districts such as the residential estate or RE, as well as the R1 zoning districts. This proposed zoning classification of R4 is considered inconsistent with that low density residential classification. Next slide is a little bit of history. As I said, this property is currently undeveloped. The first attempt to develop this site was when it was rezoned as part of the Stonebridge PD in 2004. And it had a base zoning of R2 actually, not R4. Then the PD was amended in 2012, but the site remained undeveloped. In 2012, there was another PD amendment to for this 34.4 acres of land to accommodate a mixed-use medical and specialty care campus. It didn't happen. And then the city had a citywide amendment for all PDs in the city. The last attempt to develop this site was as you recall, in 2020. A portion of the property, 3.7 acres of this land, was rezoned to accommodate a pet store and care facility located on the west side of this large tract. But the site remain undeveloped as well. The next slide is the proposed design plan, and as you can see, the intent is of the applicant is to amend the PD for this tract to accommodate a proposed residential development consisting of approximately 57 single-family lots with proposed 50-foot dedicated residential streets in conjunction with amenitized detention ponds and open space. So a large area that's going to be dedicated for detention and open space. The internal circulation, as I mentioned, is going to be consisting of 50-foot dedicated residential streets. The applicant is working that this development currently is served by one point of access through Stablestone Lane connecting back to Pearland Parkway. The applicant is working with the city staff to find a solution for a required secondary access that is required by the fire code. And so that will, if that end up being resolved, we don't anticipate that will have a bigger impact on the layout of the subdivision. However, if that's the case, then we'll bring this request back to the commission again. On the conformity table, which is the next slide, as I said, now before we get to the conformity table, this is the proposed amenity and open space plan. You can see there's a lot of open space, a lot of detention ponds there, approximately the layout of about 57 lots. These streets will be serving this development, will be, my understanding is dedicated public streets. Next slide is a kind of highlights of this proposed PD amendment. You can see the entire 34 acre will be rezoned with the R4 district and 57 lots. Next slide. There's no any deviation from from the base zoning of the R4. This is a view of this undeveloped tract taken from the terminus of Stablestone. As you know, Stablestone is dead end street. It dead ends at the western end of this property, and you're looking back towards the subject site. The next slide is the conformity table. And we look at things like the comp plan, future land use plan, thoroughfare plan, plating, and utility plans. The request is, generally speaking, consistent with all of these criteria, except, as I mentioned, the future land use designation of the low density residential. But as you know, this property is not without challenges. A big portion of this property is located within the floodway. Another issue is that this property is also, lacks visibility, lacks access due to the fact that the property is surrounded from two sides by a creek and two established residential developments from two sides, and you have commercial development from the other side. So there's some challenges there. Staff recognizes those challenges. This site has been in development for quite some time. So R4 might be a viable option there. As far as the other criteria, thoroughfare plan, as I mentioned, it will be dedicated 50-foot right-of-way throughout the development for public streets, connecting back to Pearland Parkway. Property will be platted eventually, and the utilities will be extended to this development by the developer to serve the development. The next slide is the criteria by the Unified Development Code for approving such development. such PD or PD amendments. From a staff perspective, the proposed PD amendment complies and is consistent with all of these criteria, again, except the future land use designation, because the R4 is considered sort of a medium density um, classification. The next slide is the staff recommendation, and staff finds this PD amendment is consistent with this approval criteria, again, except the future land use plan. The consideration of all conditions that exist on the property remain vacant for quite some time. The R4 may be a viable option, considering that, with a lot of the area being dedicated for open space and floodway, that will balance out the density for this development. Staff recommends approval of this proposed PD with the proposed underlying zoning of R4, subject to these regulations and conditions that are contained in the PD, and also subject to working out the secondary access requirement with the fire marshal office. The last slide is the recommendation or the action from the Planning and Zoning Commission. The commission will be making a formal recommendation to the City Council on this zone change request after the hearing and after the discussion, and the recommendation shall be as to approve as presented, approve with conditions, deny or table the request. That concludes the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Does the applicant have a presentation?
So we have a brief PowerPoint. Can we switch? Push the down arrow.
Paul Groman, 2116 Kildare, Pearland, Texas, 77581. We've owned this property a long time. Originally, it started out as residential. We were approved for some 95 lots several years ago. At that time, we had an opportunity to talk to a hospital. That would have been really positive for the area in our mind. They wound up not doing it. So we, at that time, my financial partner passed away, and I've been dealing with the heirs. So we'd like to sell the property. We have developed thousands of lots and properties in Pearland, and we're not interested in doing anything that's subpar. And Beezer has been a builder with us all along. When you look at the east side of Pearland with Highland Glen, Highland Crossing, Highland Park, the preserve at Highland Glen, they've just done a tremendous job. So we have a lot of site restrictions, as Mohammed brought out. I can't do a better job than he did. Our biggest challenge right now is access. And just as an FYI, in case you think that should be an issue, there was a natural access point to the north that the then, not current, planning staff did not utilize, did not follow any of their own rules, which is what's got us in the problem in the first place. We secondarily went back and got a secondary access that the current fire marshal's not in love with, but we'll get this worked through. That Beezer will build a great product. We're limited to 58 lots. We think that'll work. It'll be a beautiful project. It'll be less traffic than it would have been at 95. It'll be less traffic than it had turned commercial. And we just ask for your approval. If y'all have any questions, I'm here. And then Shannon Wiesenpoppy from Beezer's here as well. Shannon.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Wiesenpoppy with Beezer Homes. Thank you guys for your time. I think staff and Paul did a great job. Just was going to give a little color. Beezer's been building in Pearland for a very long time, since the late 90s. We've worked with Pearland on some other joint projects in the past, and we're going to build the same product similar to what our most recent project was in Enclave at Highland Glen. We love Pearland. We're excited to be here again, and we're going to work with staff moving forward on the emergency access. But that's pretty much all I've got, unless you have any questions.
Thank you both.
This is Commissioner Danzy. Just want to how big are the lots again? Tell me. I don't have it in front of me.
Commissioner Dansby, do you mind if we ask for public comments first?
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, jumped the gun.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner Dansby.
It won't be the last time.
It's okay. I don't have anybody on my list, and I don't have a paper from anybody. So I'm just going to ask, is anybody here to speak on this item? Anybody? Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? It's my third and final time asking if anybody here would like to speak on this item. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on with commissioners' questions and comments. Commissioner Dansby, take it away.
I think I got my answers. 55. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, I don't have any issues with it. Beezer knows how to build houses and subdivisions, so it's not their first rodeo either. So, my only comment is the same as what y'all have already addressed. If you get your secondary access and the city sign off on it, then who are we to say you follow everything else? So I'm not worried about it. Drainage looks good, which is a plus. So, yeah, to say the least. Thanks.
Commissioner Isenberg? Oswald, Hendricks, no. Not hearing any other questions and comments. Lawrence, is there something we need to add in here about the fire marshal? That's okay. Then that's it.
So all that I would say to that is that, as discussed in the staff report, is that if it does end up needing additional changes to the design plan, then we'll bring it back. So that way the public has an opportunity to comment on it.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Excuse me. Sorry, Chair Cade. Again, it was just a motion to put it on the table. So, well, I guess all in favor is you're saying you're in favor of recommending approval? Okay.
Yeah. So do you want us to do it like we did last time? Say
no. I think this time you said all in favor. So
yeah.
The motion was just to put it on the table, and by asking all in favor, I think we're good. So you're doing it fine.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay.
I counted 5-0 with one recusal.
Right. So someone needs to let me text him and tell him.
Commissioner Fuertes, if you can hear this from out there. I'm going to assume that you cannot, so.
Thank you, Mr. Grumman. It's very loud out there. He probably couldn't hear us even if. Mr. Grumman got him. Henry, come on. All right.
You still have a quorum, Chair Cade, so.
Okay. So moving on to item C. I think that's where we were. Item C, consideration and possible action. This is a zone change application, zone number 21-00008. This is a zone change from R2 to GC. This is a request by Nita Christian applicant on behalf of R West Development Company, Inc., owner, for approval of a zone change from the single-family residential 2 R2 district to the general commercial GC district on approximately 0.72 acres of land. The general location is the southeast corner of English Lakes Drive and Village Drive. Can I get a motion in a second?
So move.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hendricks, I second.
Okay, thank you. Staff report?
Thank you, Chair. Let me introduce Mohammed again to present the staff report for this case. Mohammed, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. So this is a request for approval of a zone change from single family R2 district to general commercial GC district on approximately just less of acre of land, 0.7 acre of land. We have received one letter of opposition to this request from a resident of the Town Lake Estates. That is the single family residential subdivision to the east side of this site. The zoning map on the slide, the next slide is shows the location of this zoning change request with the yellow color there. It's a triangular shaped property. Appears to be a remnant portion of the single family subdivision, appears to be. Anyway, so the property is abutted by this subdivision called the Town Lake Estates from the north side as well as the east side, and surrounded by undeveloped tracts to the west and south. To the west is a GC zoning, and to the south slightly is light industrial. The light industrial appeared to be the zoning for the majority of that area, but that tract to the south appears to be just a remnant piece of the larger light industrial. So on the future land use map, this triangular shaped property is designated as medium density residential. The intent of the medium density residential is to permit single family detached dwellings, including patio homes, plus townhomes with appropriate open space. On the conformity table, before we get to that, I've got a view here of the subject site, and you can see some of the homes in the Town Lake Estates development in the background there. This piece of property is currently undeveloped, and it's a triangular shaped lot. The next slide is the proposed, the conformity table, and this evaluates, conformance of this request based on the comp plan, future land use plan, PD plan, or the thoroughfare plan as far as the utility, as well as the utility plan. The proposed request is inconsistent with the future land use plan designation of medium density residential, as I stated before. It is also served by two local streets, which serve pretty much as residential streets. So it's inconsistent with that as well. And water and sewer are available to the subject within the area. Next slide is the approval criteria. There are 4 criteria of approval for zone changes from the Unified Development Code, and including things like the future land use plan, the comp plan, as well as the surrounding area. This request appears to be incompatible with a lot of the residential that is located on the east side of this project. And considering the site is just too small to accommodate even commercial uses, a lot of the commercial uses that would be allowed by the zoning district. The next slide is the staff recommendation. So first, staff finds this zone change request is inconsistent with the approval criteria, as I mentioned before. The proposed GC zoning permits a wide range of uses. Some of them may not be compatible with the adjacent single-family zoning to the east. And there are other transitional districts that would support fewer intensive uses than the ones allowed by the GC district, and less incompatible with the single family to the east. Staff finds that this entire tract could be rezoned to could be subject to a zone change to a transitional zoning district such as neighborhood service or the office professional. Again, that would incorporate the remaining portion of the site, which is on the west side of it. Right now, it's zone GC. This transitional zoning would be less intensive and more compatible with the residential zoning district. Then the last slide is the action by the commission. The commission can make a recommendation, formal recommendation to the city council on the zoning change request, and that could be approved to approve it as presented, approve it with recommendations or modifications to the request, not with condition, but with modifications, and that's to recommend a less intensive zoning district, or can table or deny the request. That concludes my staff report, and I will turn it back to Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. We have two people that have signed up to speak, and I also have a card for somebody that wants to speak. I'm going to start with
the applicant presentation. Ms. McGuire with R West Development and Ms. Nita, I believe, are both here.
Well, that's the ones I was starting with that have signed up to speak. I think I didn't realize they were applicants though. But Ms. Boyster and Ms. Gasson.
No, I'm sorry. That's Ms. McGuire.
Oh.
And then Nita Christian, I believe, are here on behalf of the applicant.
I'm doing a bad job on the applicants tonight. Sorry, y'all. Thank y'all for coming to speak.
Thank you. So what this was left over and left out, and we should have done it 20 years ago, but got overlooked. Yeah, it doesn't really work as residential. It's kind of off the side behind a fence. So we're just trying to combine it with whatever. We don't really care if it's office or service or whatever. We don't know what we're going to do with it. So, you know, we're just trying to get it out of residential. So if staff would rather it be called office professional or something, it's, you know, we just can't put residential homes on it. So there's also a 30-foot easement between the residential and the track that we're talking about redeveloping and including into the front piece. So we're going to be set back anyway. Most of that is going to be taken up by easements. So we were just trying to combine it with the front, and we're all for, you know, for something else for that little piece if we need to do that. We're just trying to build our one-story office building on part of it right now, which is GC, and which it fits. We can do our office building on the southern part of it. So we're just trying to throw this into another track. That's pretty much what we're trying to do.
Okay. Thank y'all. Did you go ahead?
I would like to add one thing. Since we're building on the southern part of the GC track, we were just really, at the most, we were wanting to use just a tiny tip of it for some paving. We weren't really going to build on anything at this time, so OP would be fine if that's what is best.
Okay, thank you. All right, now moving on to public comments. Marion Boyster?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. When we purchased our home in 2007, my husband and I relied on the city's zoning districts in making an informed decision. So based on our research and on the zoning district, we purchased a home in Town Lake Estates. We oppose the zoning change from R2 medium density single family to general commercial. I believe a parking lot and a one-story office building, albeit one of the speakers just said it's really not necessarily a one office building, but that is in their letter and that could be their intent. I believe that the change is inconsistent with the surrounding uses, as this land abuts our residential houses in TLE, Town Lake Estates. I submit that the zoning change result in property values going down and detract from our homes in TLE. Furthermore, I submit that it will interfere with the existing residential properties, such as traffic flow and congestion occurring. And furthermore, as far as the drainage, it's a big concern because it's my understanding that our West Development abutting properties uses our TLE drainage system, and that could present costs to us, the homeowners of TLE. Furthermore, our West Development has owned that subject property since 1999. Recently, actually this month, the early part of June, property owners of TLE, Town Lake Estates, and Marys Creek were notified by Academy Development of a proposal to build multifamily apartments at the corner of Euler Drive and 35. Our West Development previously owned this property, and they may also, it's speculation on my part, but they may hold the current vendor's lien on that property as well. So the timing and the intent of the current zoning request by our West Development is a big concern. So that's my presentation. I thank you for your time and consideration of our concerns with the zoning change request.
Thank you, Ms. Boyster. We have Ms. Gasson. Are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
My sentiments are echoing Ms. Boyster's sentiments precisely. Ultimately, when we bought in the Town Lake Estates neighborhood, we bought based on the surrounding zoning that was already in place. I have the same concerns that she has regarding both the potential for it bringing down the value of our homes, potential for drainage issues, and then long-term potential as to what other further uses will be done with the property. So ultimately, very similar to Ms. Boyster's concerns, and I think she stated them eloquently, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Gasson. Ms. Renee, you had?
I'd like to talk about drainage and traffic. We put in a boulevard there that is plenty big for all of the commercial on both sides, which is already existing. And so that's really not a problem. We got a TIA and there's no impact because we're not going to have that much traffic on that street. The other thing is, as far as drainage, there's already existing, already in place, already built, and that drains that property already. So there's nothing else that needs to be put in. Raj and them have already years ago and recently 4 or 5 different times approved the drainage plan that is already existing and has been in since 2005.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else on my list to speak to this item, but I'm going to make sure there's no one in the audience that is here to talk about this. Any public comments? I'm going to ask third and final time. Is anyone here to speak to this item? Okay. Not seeing anyone. Commissioners, any questions or comments for the staff or the applicant?
Thank you. Commissioner Fuertes is here. It seems to me that the GC zoning is a little bit intense, and I didn't mean to say a little bit intense. It is intense, abutting the neighborhood in the backyards. Given that the zoning was incorrect or it's been residential, I have a much better palate for office professional, and I was going to ask the applicant if they would consider office professional before they voluntarily said they would, and city staff also made that same recommendation, or I'm not sorry, not a full recommendation, but the suggestion. It makes more sense. So I'd be more apt to vote accordingly.
As Commissioner Dansby, I agree. I mean, when GC opens up too many opportunities, I mean, I know you guys know that. It's a tough piece to do something with regardless. It's odd shaped. So, you know, if it can be as restricted as possible and allow for, you know, some semblance of comfort to the neighbors, regardless of the fact that they probably don't necessarily want it in their backyard and fear the impact. But, you know, I think office professional is a good a fit as you're going to get on a real unique piece of property. So that would be my preference as well.
This is Commissioner Hendricks. I agree with all the other commissioners. I think office professional would be good. And I do think that the boulevard and the detention is sufficient for this lot, and I do not believe that it will ever be used for residential. No one's going to want to build a home on that. So I think office professional would be a really good use of this track, and I don't believe that it would impact the neighbors, considering that most neighborhoods have some type of commercial services in front. There's often commercial reserves that are along the very back fence. So I don't see an impact, and I think office professional would be great. That's it.
I agree with everything that's been said up here. And not seeing any other questions or comments. No.
If I can interject for just a moment and verify with Mohammed and Martin, or whichever, is city staff comfortable if the Planning and Zoning Commission wanted to recommend office professional, and if Ms. McGuire is, and I'm sorry, I know it was Natalie and I forgot the last name already, I apologize, Natalie Christian, if they're all okay with office professional, is city staff okay with a less intense use from GC down to OP?
So out of all of the zoning districts that are possible, OP is probably the preferred because it does severely limit the number of business uses that could operate in that within that zoning district. I do want to address some of the additional site development things that were discussed. Looking at the plat, there's a 8-foot utility easement and a 20-foot storm reserve that are on those that are into the property that is being requested to be rezoned. So that will affect the buffer that gets placed along those existing residential properties. So just a thing to keep in mind while it does still have ability to have plantings within there. It's just that any plantings will be sufficiently far away from any fences, as we can't put trees within the UE or within the storm channel there. But to answer Lawrence's question, yes, OP is palatable to city staff.
So those issues really are site development issues that will be reviewed at the time, assuming that the land use gets approved for a change from what it is now. As this was publicized as a zone change to GC, but the applicant is willing to accept a less intense use, whether the applicant was willing to accept that or not, you have the ability as a Planning and Zoning Commission to make a recommendation for a downgraded zoning. Here, it's just a little bit more palpable, or we anticipate that it would be because the applicant is willing to do that, and it would actually fit within potential business plans that they have. So if that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission is willing to do, we would just need to have a motion to approve OP instead of GC.
And we can do that now.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what the recommendation will be to city council. That will, in part, impact city council's vote. Just want to make sure you understand that.
Yes.
So if that's the vote that the Planning and Zoning Commission makes, but the city council would like to go higher than OP, they would need a supermajority vote to do that more intense use. Additionally, if written comments came in from more than 20% of the property owners in the area, that could also trigger that supermajority requirement. But based on the comments that I heard and the names that I see on BCAT, I don't believe that adjoining or adjacent land use trigger is going to be met. Although it is possible that by time this goes to city council, there are more written comments or other comments presented that could impact that.
Do I check with the applicant or?
You're welcome to. I believe they both stated, but if you wanted to make sure that it's clear on the record, so.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
They're shaking their heads affirmatively for the record.
Yes.
And to do this right, is this one of those cases where the person that made the motion and the second, if they make the recommendation, one vote?
We could do it with one vote. It doesn't have to be that process, Commissioner Fuertes, simply because it was consideration and possible action. Somebody moved. They didn't move to approve. So it was just moved, which I'm taking as to put it on the table. So at this point, if somebody said move to approve this as OP instead of GC, and there was a second, that one and only vote is all that would be necessary.
I will, in kind, make a motion to approve zone change 21-00008 as an office professional zoning.
Commissioner Hendricks, I second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0 now. Sorry. Back. Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item D. This is commission input and discussion on a conditional use permit application CUP number 21-00014. This is a request by Selwyn P. Thint, Everest Design Group LLC applicant on behalf of Ngozi Anadwaka, Texas RX Solutions and Compounding Pharmacy LLC owner, for approval of a conditional use permit CUP for auto wash self-service within the general commercial GC district to accommodate a proposed development of a car wash with self-service vacuums on 1.34 acres of land. The general location is 3815 Alice Street. And I'm not, this is, the CUP process is I'm going to let Martin discuss.
Right, thank you, Chair. So just as a reminder, the purpose of conditional use permits are to allow uses which may not be suitable or may be suitable if there are certain conditions met based on the zoning district and the site development standards and conditions that would apply to that development. The CUP process allows for the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council to evaluate, make comments on, and make recommendations for those uses and land developments. With that, I will introduce Samin Bazargan. She's one of our planners here in community development. Hopefully she's online. Sabine, I see that you joined in on the call.
Yeah. Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission members. This next case is a CUP for a car wash and auto wash self-service within a general commercial zone district. The property is located at, sorry, okay, thank you. The property is located on Alice Street, which is within industrial zone district. Staff has received several letters in opposition to the proposed CUP. So the applicant is proposing to develop a 4,000 square foot car wash facility with self-service vacuum within a larger future development. In this property, as you can see, the property is located in general commercial, surrounded by industrial park, self-storage, and warehouses, and pretty much mostly undeveloped properties. And next slide, please. The future land use map designation for this property is industrial, which is designed for manufacturing, industrial, and different service types. Next slide, please. As you can see, these pictures are showing different views to this property from Alice Street and McCart and the surrounding area, which are mostly like undeveloped or like warehouses. The site plan shows that the proposed car wash, which is going to be part of a larger development, has access to Alice Street, and the proposed design and site plan has no negative impact on the surrounding area and improve the traffic flow of the future development. And next slide. You can see the existing car washes within a 2 and 5 mile radius of the proposed site. So there are 2 car washes within a 2 mile radius and within 5 mile radius. The proposed CUP is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan, which is an industrial. The subject property is located along Alice Street, which is designed and is planned to be widened, and also along McCart, which has sufficient width. The property has not been platted yet, but has access to water and sewer line along Alice Street. Next slide. The property, the staff finds that the proposed auto car wash meets the established criteria for approval of a CUP. The proposed use is also consistent with the policies of the comprehensive plan, including future land use map and the thoroughfare plan, and the purpose and intent of general commercial zoning district. Staff is not recommending any additional conditions for approval of this development. And I mentioned in the previous slide, the proposed car wash will be part of the larger development, and the site plan will help with the overall traffic flow of the future development. Next slide. So staff proposed use is consistent with the approval criteria, so staff recommends approval of the CUP for car wash. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Applicant presentation, is the applicant here? Thank you.
Evening, Commissioner. My name is Selthan with Everest Design Group. Is it possible to pull up sheet 9 on the staff report? That's one. Thank you. So the subject tract is approximately 4.8 acres, located at the intersection of State Highway 35, McCard on the north side, on the east is Profex, and bounded by, on the south side, Ellis Street. As you can see, the property has 4 roads frontages. The car wash site that we're talking about is located within the 4.8 acres with property size of 1.3 acres. There is a half an acre tract that staff have requested us to have a buffer between State Highway 35 and McCard. So it's a second lot from State Highway 35. There's a total of 4 lots with a detention pond reserve on the overall development. We have located the car wash internal to the State Highway 35 McCart intersection to abate any type of stacking requirements or that would result in queuing. There is a public water and sewer on site, and storm drainage is taken care of by the detention pond on the northeast corner. If there's any questions that you may have, I can answer.
Thank you, sir. We're going to have to do public comment first, so you're welcome to have a seat, but I recommend you not go far.
We have one person signed up to speak, and that's Jerry Koza.
Good evening, Jerry Koza Jr., 2823 Nob Hill. First, let me thank the commissioners. I did that job for 6 years. I know it's pretty thankless. I'm here to speak against this, and through no fault of the property owner themselves, that's a crummy piece of property. When they put McCard Road in, it made it a very difficult piece of property to use. But the plans for the car wash show no access from McCard Road and Alice Street, not by my definition, but by Tim Finan, who is a former assistant city manager, is substandard. When they widened Highway 35, they tried to change the drainage and make everything drain to the west. However, unfortunately, the highest point on that road is only about a third the way from the west, and so they closed off the drainage on the east, and water stands. As it stands right now, when we get a heavy rain, we're about 2 inches from getting water into our building before it finally caps over Alice Street in a couple places. When I look at it also, they're talking about widening the road to 80 feet. Just glancing at it, where they put the power lines, I don't know, maybe there is 80 feet there, maybe there's not. But, it does look like it'd be a tight deal. And I'd be more acceptable of it if the city came in like they did on Halleck Street and actually lowered the street and put in drainage. But as it stands right now, it's it's a tough situation for us, and I'm sure it's going to be a tough situation on those lots too, the lack of drainage. And then finally, back when I was on the commission, we talked a lot about the McCard overlay district, and a car wash was something that they pounded in us was not something that was acceptable at the time for the overlay district. That they were trying to hold that to McCard to a higher standard. And then my final question, and I'm going to pose this to Lawrence because he might be the only one that knows the answer, is in the letter from Everest Design, it made a comment that the utility poles were going to be moved with city support. Was that city support in just verbal support or written support, or was that city support in the city paid to move the poles? That's all I have to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koza. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? I don't have anyone else signed up, but just in case, I'm going to ask another time. Anybody? Third and final time? No? Okay. Commissioners, questions or comments for the applicant or for staff?
I did ask PDC the other day about this and the road, and it's my understanding they are going to discuss it Thursday about Alice Street doing exactly what you mentioned, Mr. Koza, widening it, increasing the drainage opportunities and comparable to Halleck. So I'm not sure what that'll do with the poles or any of that deal, or who's going to move them or who's not. So, but I know that the discussion will be that they want to improve Alice similar to or comparable to Halleck and Rice Dryer as well. So it's definitely on their radar. So that money to do that would come from there. So it's just something I was aware of.
I mean, you said we had 15 that you heard from that were opposed.
Yes, we had 15 opposition letter. However, the letters were not from the people within the 200 foot of the notification.
That's actually what my question was going to be, since there's not really residents there. That's what my question was. All right, thank you. Anybody more questions or comments?
If I may chime in there, Madam Chair, there are only 3 property owners within the notification list for this project. So that is correct. There's really not that many people within the notification area. A lot of these letters have come from residents maybe throughout the city. We haven't checked to see where they're located, but they're not within the notification boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
If I could add in one additional thing, PEDC does not have this on their agenda, but they will be discussing it. So it's not officially an actionable item. It's just something that's on there for discussion.
Commissioner Fuertes, my biggest issue is, we know the current council has issues with automobile-related uses, and it's been obvious in our joint public hearings that just stopped. It's not just the current council. That's been the case since I think 2014 or 15 when they made the rulings that all automobile uses would be CUP. For that reason, they wanted to take a closer look at it at the use itself.
and then go, track by track, case by case. My issue here is that, speaking of the EDC, they spent, I believe, millions of dollars, plural, up and down Main Street or Highway 35, Telephone Road as we knew it growing up, for beautification. And I'm not sure that a car wash is what they had in mind, and taxpayers that are footing that bill had in mind. I certainly don't have that in mind. And secondly, that's Main Street, which won't have, and I believe the comment was made that there's a half acre that they'll leave open there. But McHart itself, continuing on just past this property going west, you're going to go over the bridge, the railroad track, overpass the railroad track, not a bridge. Get to an intersection that's been dead-ended for years, and pretty soon that you're going to be driving straight, and that's a brand new road that cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I'm just not sure this is the right location. I appreciate that it's a difficult track to work with, but I can't get there. I just can't get there with this location. So that's my opinion.
What is Alice Road made? What material is it made up of right now? Just asphalt. So it's bermed up in the top and it comes over. And, okay, I'm like Commissioner Fuentes. I can't quite get there either, so I'm going to be against it.
Commissioner Boswell?
Commissioner Boswell, it's no secret for CUPs concerning automotive use, especially car washes. I feel like we have enough. But that coupled with the fact that there's already drainage and flooding issues in that area, it would probably make it a no for me. No further comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Hendricks? I don't really have any comments. I asked what I wanted to ask, and then
I just wanted to remind P&Z that there's not a vote that's taken on this item. So if there are any additional thoughts, those will be shared as you present them. So some of you are saying you don't have comments, and I'm not saying you have to say anything. I'm just encouraging you to vocalize your thoughts now so that those thoughts can be carried forward to the City Council.
so we can vocalize this. I would be a no on this, or I would be a yes on this, so council knows how we feel. So, I mean, can you show the screen again that says how many car washes are in the radius there? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm sorry to say I would be a no on this due to the corridor and the entrance to Pearland being right there on Main Street, and the proximity of the other car washes. And just for a myriad of reasons, I believe that they've all been covered by other commissioners. I would be a no on this one.
The only thing I would point out is this is zone GC, so we're looking at this because it's an auto use. If they come to the table with a Burger King or a McDonald's or something that has a much higher traffic count and footprint, and it's not auto, they can put it on the property tomorrow. Correct? I mean, theoretically not tomorrow, but you know what I mean.
That is correct. And one of the reasons that staff didn't have additional conditions for approval for this was that everything that they have showed appears to comply with the corridor overlay district. Now, some of the things that we have seen in the past with automotive uses along Pearland Parkway, which is also a corridor overlay district road, are the higher landscape standards, such as the Valvoline that we saw at the center at Pearland Parkway. So if that were something that the commission would like to entertain, if the enhanced screening of the automotive bay, not the automotive bay, the car tunnel, car wash, would help to provide that additional screening, help to provide that additional beautification, then I would suggest that
That's what I was going to say.
brought into the
We just did that approval off of Shadow Creek Parkway 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was, and we highly restricted, put the vacuums in the back, and buffered those with the apartment complex, and we were highly concerned with visibility. And we had the other one that was going to be a gas station with the car wash down the side on Kingsley, and we turned, did not approve that one because of that. So I think, you've got a double-edged sword here where we're going to tell a landowner that you can't put something in without giving them some direction somewhat, but they can turn right around and build something else or sell it to someone else and put whatever they want, and you're going to have no controls. So my flip side of that is, if this is proposed to be here with a high level of restrictions as far as setbacks or with screening, or if you put the tunnel wash on the inside or the outside, whichever looks better aesthetically, and you allow that to be visibly more appealing than otherwise, then at least you have some control ability in place. Because if you allow this to be continued GC, which it is, and they put something else that is not automotive based, they can build anything they want. We have zero control of how it's somewhat within our limits here. So what I can tell you is, when I was on PEDC, we looked at this whole piece of property, and we had lots of other plans for it besides a car wash. We hoped. So this is not what was intended, but with an automotive-based product being discussed, we have controls that we can put in place. If we don't do that, then we have zero controls. So I would, if we were going to build in some screening and some other things, I would be for it. If we're limited on that, or or this product is not a fit, then I would say I would possibly vote against it. But it's tough on me because we can add some things in this to make it more appealing if this is the product. If this is not a product that council wants here, then move on.
Did you have drawings or anything with you?
Mr. Thint, were those, I'm over here, sorry. Were those drawings provided in one of the packets that were given to folks? Okay, so the difference is the coloring on it? All right. The only concern that I had is when you're addressing the commission like that, the public can't see what you're presenting, and they also couldn't hear you. So if this is the same thing that you have on page 9 with the coloring, that's fine. And then Commissioner Fuertes is helping you out by letting you have a microphone there so that the public can hear what you're saying as well.
Should I orient this to the public? Should I do it?
Well, the commission's going to be the one making the decision, so you can let them know. The public can see the one that's on the screen that just doesn't have the green color on it.
So I just wanted to accentuate the fact that the car wash is one use of the 4. So we have, what we're intending is as a professional office building at the corner of 35 and McCard. That's the half-acre tract that we're leaving. The staff in the economic development suggested that they don't want the car wash adjacent to 35. So 1 acre, 1.3 acre out of the 4.8 acre is for the auto-related use. Then we have a pharmaceutical use adjacent to that. Then we have the detention, and then another professional use at Profax.
So it shows 2 entrances off of McCard. Is that the case? Because it was mentioned previously that the only entrances would be off Alice Street.
Well, there's only one entrance for the car wash. For the overall development, there is a medium break at McCard, which is there's a natural entrance into the development. I mean, one of the concern is whether this use would create traffic issues. So off McCarr, there's right in and right out because of there's existing median. So the primary access to this facility would be through Alice, and we've located far away from it so that if there are queues for the use, it's not being used at the first entrance, it's being used at the third entrance because the primary entrance here is for vacuum. So in order to use the car wash facility, the patron has to come along here, queue it through here, and then leave.
I see. So off of McCard, that goes to the office building and then the other pharmaceutical.
That's correct. So the primary entrance to McCard only access the office building.
Okay.
And this entrance from at the median break, the future pharmaceutical company, pharmacy company, and then it comes onto another professional access road. So it's not main use on this development. We're here because auto-relators require a conditional use permit. That is we have multiple use on this development.
We're playing hide the mic. The other three uses, they seem similar. Office, they're okay by right, correct? The only reason we're here is because one of the four uses is a car wash.
Correct.
And just to address, as a licensed engineer, the drainage issues that Commissioner mentioned and others mentioned, it's whether we have a car wash or a shopping center, the impervious area of what's being paved in terms of parking lot, it's what we're in charge to collect on site and put it into detention pond, so that there is no adverse impact off our property in terms of the existing facility, Alice. City has talked to us about participating in our project to improve Alice Road, but we haven't gotten further discussions on it, which we're not opposed to as part of this development.
This is Commissioner Hendricks. I have a question. So is your drainage going to go to TxDOT right away, or are you going to McCard?
We have a detention pond. All the water is being captured onto here, and there is a pump system that pumps into an existing storm sewer on McCard. We're in the industrial zone.
I understand that, but still, you've got office buildings and stuff that are back to the south of you. And I know I'm a little bit biased when it comes to car washes because I live behind one, and you can barely hear when you walk out in the backyard. And so how is the wind turbine that sets up, that drives the vehicles and stuff, where are they situated in those things?
Honestly, we haven't gotten that far. I mean, there is a 30-foot landscape buffer on McCard that we're respecting on, as you can see shaded in green. Obviously, if the use is not allowed, we're not going further. If the use is allowed, then we will go into the architectural engineering of the facility.
So again, I would just suggest that this isn't something you take a vote on. We just carry your comments forward in the report to City Council. So if you had any additional comments based on the additional information that Mr. Thint provided, please add those to the records now.
Commissioner Boswell? Commissioner Henry?
Nothing additional for me. Thank you.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. All right. Moving on in the agenda to item, where are we? Item E. Hey, thank everybody. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Koza. Thank you to the applicant for being here. Item E, commission input and discussion on a conditional use permit application number CUP 21-00017. This is a request by M. Nadeem Batla, applicant, on behalf of CAFM OPCO LLC owner, for approval of a conditional use permit CUP for market open air use within the light industrial M1 district to accommodate a food truck park located within the Kohl's Antique and Flea Market on a half acre of land. The general location is 1014 Main Street in Pearland. Can I get I think I need a motion well. No, I don't.
Just put it on the table.
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Dansby, a second from Commissioner Boswell. Can I get a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Once again, let me introduce Samin. Samin, take it away.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission members. So the next CUP case is for a food truck park within the existing market in light industrial zone district, which is located at 1014 Main Street. The future land use for this property is industrial. And if you go to next slide, you can see the proposed food truck park is going to be within the existing development of the outdoor market and in light industrial. So it's surrounded by undeveloped lot, gas station, the market, and warehouses on the other side of Main Street. And in the next slide, you can see the future land use map, which is designated as industrial for this property. The next slide, you can see the view from Main Street and also the to the inside of the market. You can see where they're planning to put the food truck park. And as you can see, there are plenty of parking area within that development. So the site plan on the right, you can see the location of the future food trucks within that park, and also the seating area. And on the left side, you see the proposed plan of the potential food truck park. And next slide, the proposed food truck park is in compliance with the comprehensive plan and consistent with the future land use map, which is industrial and is designed for warehouses, manufacturing, and service type uses. The subject property, as you can see, has a large parking area and is located along Main Street with sufficient width. The property has not been platted, but has access to water line along Main Street. Next slide. So the request is for an addition to existing market, and the proposed use is compliance with the comprehensive plan with UDC, and there is no need for further road adjustment and traffic control, as the proposed food truck is going to be inside the market, outdoor market, with a sufficient parking area. And based on the compliance with the criteria, the proposed use is consistent with the approval criteria, and based on that, staff recommends approval for the CUP of proposed food truck park. And that completes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you. Do you have a presentation or?
Yes, I do. I had emailed Martin and Mohammed the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. He's pulling it up. Hold on one second.
Give me, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm. Sir, do you want to introduce yourself and while we're
Yes. Yes, of course. Hello, commissioners and staff and members of the public. My name is Nadeem Batla. I'm the applicant for the food truck park at Cole's Flea Market. One of the gentlemen who represents the owners is in the audience as well, Lincoln Hoffman. And after I finish speaking about the particulars of the food truck park, he will be available to speak about United Flea Markets and their operations across the country.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I do want to say I was intending to attend the meeting in person. However, at 12:30 this afternoon, I got an email from Southwest saying my flight had been canceled, and the earliest they could put me on a flight to Houston would be 10:20 at night, and I figured that was just going to be too late.
Well, we'll probably still be here, but
It seems like it. I probably should have just jumped on that flight.
We appreciate the effort regardless.
I do enjoy being in person.
Before you get started, one quick question. We know that, and you'll probably cover this, but their hours of use appears this will be a more than just a weekend, which I believe Coles is currently.
Correct.
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
So I checked my email off screen. I don't have an email, and I checked in with Mohammed that he doesn't have an email, but I do have the presentation, or I believe of the presentation that was included in the application packet.
It'll be the same PowerPoint presentation.
So cool. I can scroll through this while you just give me direction on when you'd like me to change for you.
Mr. Butler, he does have it loaded.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I can see the PowerPoint presentation on my screen.
Okay, great.
Okay. So as we've been told repeatedly in the past that this is simply a CUP, of course, we will follow all the staff recommendations, as well as once we start submitting building plans, architectural plans, we will be following all rules of fire, of building, of engineering. Really what we're doing here today is to make sure that the property is usable as a food truck park. And as I go through the slides, what I'd like to impress upon the commissioners and the staff is that we're not going to be parking food trucks willy-nilly and haphazardly in a parking lot. What we're trying to do is create more of a park than a parking lot. So if you could scroll down a couple of slides for me, please. So let's stop on that slide right there, if you don't mind. So one of the main things we're concerned about is the vehicular pedestrian interaction. And what you're going to see on this slide is we only have one way of ingress and egress for the customers to come in, and that would be at the bottom of the slide. The food trucks in general do not leave the property during business hours to attend outside events. We consider this a permanent food truck park, and as such, our trucks don't come and go at their leisure. They would only be allowed to come and go outside of business hours. So again, we're not taking a chance of an interaction between pedestrians and vehicles. And you can continue scrolling down for me, please. And let's keep going. So let's take a look at this screen. You can begin to see that we're using 3 different ground materials. We're using a concrete pad underneath the food trucks. We're using an AstroTurf for the walking areas, or for the sitting areas, and then a crushed gravel for the walking areas. And if you could scroll down a couple of more slides for me, please. And let's keep going. And one more, I believe. Sorry, one more. Here we go. So here you can see we have the gravel for the walkways, we have the concrete pads for the food trucks, and then we've got the AstroTurf for the sitting area. We also have the strung party lights, the hung fans, as well as the shade canopies. And then consider each one of our trucks as an individual restaurant. They'll all have their individual hookups to electric, to potable water, as well as to grease traps. So you won't have unsightly and trip hazard cords for pedestrians to possibly trip over. We also won't have to carry the gray water to the grease trap, nor will we have to take the used cooking oil in buckets to the used cooking oil recycling facility. We've actually just developed a new product that will actually bring the clean cooking oil to the trucks, as well as remove the used cooking oil from the trucks for biodiesel recycling. And then we can continue going down the slides. And we can keep going. So again, a site plan showing a top-down view of what we envision the food truck park looking like. If you look at the left-hand side, the bottom left-hand side, we do have a stage there for music entertainment. However, that obviously will be subject to zoning rules. We will not be exceeding noise ordinances, nor will we be playing music outside of recommended hours. And we can continue scrolling down. And we can continue scrolling. And we can continue scrolling. And there's our stage once again. All right. So if the commissioners have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this point.
Sir, they can't ask questions yet, but after the public comment, if they have any questions, they will be happy to direct them to you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
And we're going to call Lincoln's presentation stage 2 of the applicant presentation. Well, we can call it part 2 if you want, but
Oh, I like stage.
such a pretty picture on the screen.
I like stage. Is there a stage?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lincoln Hoffman. I'm part of the ownership group with United Flea Markets, and we own Kohl's Flea Market. I just wanted to speak to you all a little bit about who we are and what we do. Kohl's is our 15th flea market that we've acquired across the country. We typically go in, we find underdeveloped markets, deferred maintenance markets, come in and we revitalize them, work closely with local government to make sure we're doing it right, because we tend to find over the years after acquiring a market, previous owners tend to kind of do whatever they like, and that has been a bit of the case with the Kohl's Flea Market, is our understanding. That's not how we operate. But I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about who we are as a country. Like I said, we do have 15 markets across the country. We're widely spread geographically. Our first market and our largest one is located in Denver, Colorado, and sits on 80 acres. This is really the market that we aspire to bring all of our markets up to. It's essentially like going to the county fair every weekend. We operate 40 plus concession stands on the market. We have full amusement rides, entertainment, live music. Our biggest goal and ambition is to maintain the character of these flea markets as they've typically grown up with the surrounding community, but bring in improvements, revitalize them, improve curb appeal. And for our part too, we create venues to afford opportunities for thousands of people, small business owners, entrepreneurs, to really support their families. And that's a big goal of ours, is to make sure that we have a strong environment. For them to be successful. I don't know what happened to my presentation. I apologize. There we go. So that's a big aim for us. And like I said, we want to come back in and reinvest back into the markets, make them a stronger part of the community. We have some intent to phase in, I don't know what happened to my presentation, to provide some phased improvements over time within the market. We understand that there's an outstanding settlement agreement with the city of Pearland, and there's a few items that still need to be rectified on that. In addition to that, we know that there's some deferred maintenance out there, and that's part of the overall plan. And this food truck part is kind of that first step in improving the curb appeal, improving the market itself, and providing a stronger venue for both the vendors and the buyers within the community. So that's just a little bit about us as a company. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't have anyone listed to speak, but is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak for or against it? Asking a second time, anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against it? Third and final time. Samin, I wanted to ask you, you had also 15 public comments on this?
No, Commissioner. So that was for the previous case, not for this one.
All right, thank you. I thought it was listed on this one as well.
No, we don't. We didn't receive any letter in opposition of the proposed CUP.
All right, great. Appreciate it.
Just so you know, Commissioner Fuertes, just so you know, it was on that screen, the original screen or the first screen. Yeah, it did say 15 at the bottom. So I think it was just maybe copy, cut, and pasted from the previous one, but I'm glad you pointed that out. There were no.
And that's
Scrivener's error. It was an error.
But just to be clear, that so anybody watching knows that was not for this item.
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
Commissioner Isenberg, I'll go first. Well, you kind of had me at food trucks, so, but you know, if you go out there and you do something with this, I'm coming up on 68 years old, and I remember when they first put in the flea market out there, and it is an eyesore to Pearland. So anything that you can do to go in there and upgrade this thing. In the past, we have talked about having a food truck area in Pearland, and it just never seemed to get any wings. If this thing is the flea market, or are y'all going to structure it where it's open during the week? Or is the flea market strictly going to be a weekend thing and the food court be open, all during the week and stuff?
So this is Lincoln Hoffman with United Flea Markets. Our intent is to have it operate during the week as well. So it'll partner, with the operating hours of the flea market on the weekend, and then during the week the flea market will be closed. And the way that we'll operate it is it'll be completely secured and segregated from the market itself, with parking in the general parking area, and then they can have access into the food truck park during the week.
Okay. Well, as far as my recommendations, I'm all for it. Anything that y'all could do to clean that up out there would be a great thing. And I know that all these food trucks are going to have, the dietitian stuff in it. So I'm all in. So
You got it.
This is Commissioner Dansby. I'd say when I was on PEDC, we discussed putting a food truck park over there by the rice dryer that's not there anymore, obviously, because it's a huge booming opportunity there. And so the other thing is when we improved 35, we tried. How long have you guys owned this facility?
We just acquired Kohl's back in December of 2020. So
So the previous owner was a little less open to working with PEDC. We were trying to, here we go with buffers again, but kind of beautify as much as you can. The hard part on that for those guys, obviously, is that you restrict the view of their facility somewhat when we put, trees and some other things in. So, I would generally say that as a former PEDC member, chair, and whatever else, and someone that drives down that road every single morning, anything like Commissioner Isenberg said that we can do to help your business, but also improve the way it visually looks, it would be a great asset to us and anyone else looking at doing, assisting going forward. I think the food truck deal is a slam dunk. If it works the way proposed and it looks the way it's proposed, I think that's going to be a great thing, and I'll be there with Commissioner Isenberg eating my dietetic ice cream or something.
we'll have some all-day passes for you.
There you go. That is not on record.
The only thing that surprised me this entire presentation was that the facility is currently not platted. Is that correct? I think that was in the presentation that Samin gave.
Give me just a moment. I'm confirming that.
Well, I'll just make it quick. I don't even need to know. We're not. Yeah, yeah.
I don't see a plat on record for that.
Okay. And my comment was, if it is great, if it's not to make it part of the condition, but it seems like they're asking for something. It seems like it's time to do it. I mean, I guess I've heard that back and forth for the previous 10 years I was on the planning and zoning, so it seems like it would make sense to do something like that. Unless, of course, it just becomes an exercise of futility.
So I'm sure that the planning staff will review that at time of permits to see if the UDC triggers for platting require it. I believe when city staff reviewed this in the development and review process, well, at least when I heard it, I didn't realize the extensive upgrades that they were doing or the enhancements in it. But with the pavement for the sidewalks and the AstroTurf kind of area, and then the parking for the food trucks with the electrical and the grease traps, I would think that it hits the UDC triggers, but I don't want to speculate. So.
Thank you for that.
So the plat will be required due to the amount of square footage that they are redoing within that area.
One more comment. Being they just had a survey done, so it might not take long to do platting if they just traded hands for the sale. So
there will be no generator usage on any of this. It'll all be hooked up to electric. Okay.
Yep. Completely hooked up.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
We intend to build out a full-use commissary as well, so that the trucks have kind of a home base on site. And then there's already grease trap infrastructure in the new buildings that are currently
Welcome to Pearland.
Thank you. Really glad to be here. We love this market.
Commissioner Henricks, Commissioner Boswell.
I'm quite excited for the food truck venue. It looks very cute. So I'm in support of it.
I echo the sentiments of the other commissioners. I'm very excited for this. It looks like a very fun development. I'm always going into Houston for food trucks, so now to have one in the Pearland area, I think will be fun. And I'm also looking forward to concerts or, music performances if y'all are able to get that within, the certain times that it's permitted. So again, very excited.
I'm also excited, except for the traffic and parking, but hopefully y'all will work something out for that, because I know it's just the turn in, to the wait in line to turn in. I've been to Kohl's twice in my 23 years in Pearland, and both times it was the turn in was. It was traumatic. That's a good word.
Bad.
That is a really good word.
Yeah, I agree with you. Part of our intent with this also is to reconfigure the admission plan. So we're going to be doing a traffic impact analysis for the food truck itself, but we're going to combine that with the reconfigure of the admission plan to alleviate that U-turn that you have to make coming into the market, which is what backs you up all the way down the road. So absolutely agree with you 100%. We're looking at solving that.
I didn't want to be a downer and say that part, because this is awesome and I really am excited about it. But I mean, just to be realistic, and this reminds me, the food truck area and all this reminds me of a little bit of Magnolia and Waco. We've been there numerous times and it's awesome and packed all the time, and that little food truck area is great. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I really am, and it's great. Thank you. And so we don't vote, but obviously we gave our.
We voted with our food truck.
We voted with our food truck love. So there, so we'll move on. Thank you again for coming. Thank you, sir. Mr. Botla, thank you. I hope you heard all of our comments.
I did. You know what? If I can just say, I really want to give the staff a shout out. They were incredibly accommodating. They were wonderfully communicative. I just cannot say enough good things about the staff that you have, and taking me through the entire CUP process. I really want to give a lot of props to them. You've got great staff working for you.
We do. Thank you. We agree. Thank you for thank you for being here. Well, and I'm sorry you couldn't really get here, but thank you for being online.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be there for the July 12th City Commission meeting.
Okay, great. Appreciate it.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
So moving on to item F. Item F. Yes. Consideration and possible action variance from the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio. Item number VARP 21-00004. This is a request of Kathy Fontenot of Survey 1 Inc., the applicant, on behalf of Syriac Manny owner, for approval of a variance permitted in section 2.6.1.1B1 of the Unified Development Code, ordinance number 2000T, from section 3.2.142C to allow the creation of a lot in excess of the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio. The general location is west side of Roy Road in the 2400 block. Can I get a motion in a second?
Commissioner Fuertes, so moved for approval. Motion for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
I've got a motion for approval from Commissioner Fuertes and a second from Commissioner Dansby. Can we have a staff report?
This is Vince Husted, city staff. The purpose of this variance from the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio has been stated that it is to plat a lot on Roy Road. This request does meet the criteria of approval found on the next slide. The next slide shows the location of the applicant's property. And the final slide shows the configuration of the lot that came in with simultaneously with a minor plat application. So if this plat does get approved, which staff does recommend approval, this plat will be able to be approved. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I know I need to call for public input, but is the applicant here or online?
I don't see the applicant online, and I did not see anybody sign up to speak about this particular item.
Okay. So I'm going to call for public input.
So even though we all can look out in the audience
There's
and
nobody
not
here.
see anybody here, the public doesn't know that, so we make the call anyhow.
So would anybody like to speak on this item? Anybody like to speak for or against this item? Last call. All right, thank you. Commissioners?
Commissioner Fortes here. Just my only comment is that years and years and years ago, Planning and Zoning looked at Garden Road and O'Day Road, and we made I don't remember if we called it mixed use district, Garden O'Day, mixed use. Is that what it's called? Okay, I actually got that right.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove Roy Road today for another reason, and I really feel like we should have included Roy Road, and I'm not sure why we did not. But the north side of Broadway, just as Garden O'Day, mixed use is on the north side. It's very similar. So whatever I can do to help an owner of land out, I sure am willing. But just future consideration, even in our comprehensive plan update that we're considering next year, we may want to look at this again. Just a thought.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions or comments? Hearing none. All right, so all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right. Item G, consideration and possible action, replat of Kingsley Corner at Shadow Creek, lots 1A and 1B, Block 1, plat number 21-00037. This is a request of Michael Lane of JPH Land Surveying, Inc., the applicant, on behalf of AS 143 SC Ranch LP owner for approval of the replat of Kingsley Corner at Shadow Creek, lots 1A and 1B, Block 1, creating two non-residential lots on 1.964 acres of land located at 12,750 Shadow Creek Parkway. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved for acceptance.
Commissioner Fortes, second.
I got a motion from Commissioner Isenberg and a second from Commissioner Fuertes. Staff report, please.
This is Vince Husted, city staff. This plat to create two lots meets the criteria of approval found on the code conformance table. Staff does recommend approval of the replat because it meets the criteria of approval found in the UDC for approval of a replat. The next slide shows the location of the applicant's property at the southeast corner of Shadow Creek Parkway and Kingsley. The last slide shows the configuration of the lots that would be created with this replat. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioners, do y'all have any questions or comments for staff?
Real quick, it goes from one, it says create two non-residential lots, but I'm looking at that drawing. Is that, it actually makes three?
The third lot that's shown there
It's
is
not
an
numbered,
existing
so.
lot. So it's 1A and 1B are these two lots that
So this was originally, this was our C-store on the left, and then this is the theoretically going to be the either car wash? Is that
Correct. The retail use in 1A, the car wash in 1B, and the funeral home in the existing lot.
okay?
Do I need
If
to
I can
ask-
interrupt, yes.
Um,
Caitlin Atkins had signed up to speak, and she is currently still on the line.
Is that the applicant or Ms. Atkins?
She'll let us know in
Yes.
just a second.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I actually work for the developer. We're purchasing a lot from the strange name developer, the AS143. I do not work for them. They are the current owners. I work for Vacara Ventures, and the Michael Lane works for the surveyor who did this plot for us. And you're correct. We are replatting into a lot 1A and lot 1B because currently it's just lot 1. So we're recreating 2 lots out of 1. We are not a car wash though. I don't know where that came from, but lot 1B will not be a car wash.
All right, thank you.
Do you have an intent at some point for what it would be? Just curious.
Yes, it'll be just commercial retail for an auto parts store. We already have some of our plans and as well as an SUP submittal.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners? Questions or comments? Commissioner Boswell? No? Commissioner Henricks? Commissioner Isenberg? I don't have any questions or comments. Which ones? You said this is the funeral? It's just close by it. Okay. Not hearing any questions or comments. And this is one we're going to vote on. So all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All right. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for being here, Ms. Atkins. I think it was Ms. Atkins, right? All right. Moving on to item H, consideration and possible action, replat of restricted reserve A 518 Dixie Plaza plat number 21-00038. This is a request of Mayra Hernandez, the applicant, on behalf of Walmart Real Estate Business Trust owner for approval of the replat of restricted reserve A 518 Dixie Plaza, creating 2 non-residential lots on 23.6012 acres of land located at 1710 Broadway. Can I get a motion in a second?
Commissioner Boswell, so moved.
Commissioner Henricks, second.
Thank you. Staff report?
This is Vince Husted, city staff. Again, this replat is located at 1710 Broadway to create 2 lots. This replat does meet the criteria of approval found on the code conformance table. Staff does recommend approval of this replat because it meets the criteria of approval found in the UDC for approval of a replat. The slide that shows the location of property shows that it is also the current location of the Walmart on Dixie Farm Road. And then the next slide shows that a small portion of that lot is actually being platted as a smaller lot that will be sold as an out parcel, but it will result in the end 2 lots, one for the Walmart and then one for the out parcel. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Is there anybody online, Lawrence?
Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission, my name is Myra Hernandez with Jones & Carter, and I'm here to available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions or comments?
Which, I'm just trying to, on the drawing, is it the little L-shaped piece or, oh, it's that little corner piece behind the gas station?
It's that small lot.
I got you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Commissioner Dansby, wait, double check that. So
It's not behind the gas station, it's to the left of the gas station.
I was going to say
There's nothing there now?
Yeah, well,
It's the entryway into Walmart. Or it's one of the entryways.
So if you're at the Walmart coming off of Dixie Farm Road, there are two entrances into that Walmart parking lot off of Dixie Farm. This would be the northern entrance. This lot encompasses that northern entrance.
Right across from Home Depot?
Yes, ma'am.
Right there.
I think I described that correctly.
Right. This particular entrance has like some sort of traffic control device to slow traffic down as they're coming in off of Dixie Farm Road.
And this traffic is bad right there. Didn't we talked about a traffic impact analysis when we were talking about something else behind Walmart, didn't we?
So they will go through the traffic worksheet, and if there's additional traffic impacts necessary, we'll take care of that during the building permit stage.
I'm excited about this, but I'm still worried about traffic. I mean, right there, that little spot is bad. And so I don't know how to.
Unfortunately, this is a plat, and when they meet all the prescribed.
Oh yeah, this is.
It's
all right. Well, then let's move on. Thank you, Commissioner. I was going to call you Fuentes, but Fuentes. All right. So.
So just a point of clarification, Commissioner Boswell, you made the motion, but it was just a motion. It didn't say to approve or deny on it. Ms. Hendricks, Commissioner Hendricks, you seconded it. I know that Chair Kate is going to say all in favor, but what she's really saying in favor of is the motion that was on the table. And the motion was just a motion. It didn't give direction. So if you could clarify that you meant to approve. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Commissioner Hendricks, since you seconded. Yep. Okay. Wanted to reduce any confusion, any possible confusion. I appreciate it.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. I'm going to raise mine really high. Okay. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez, for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're moving on to discussion items. Commissioner's activity report.
There'll be a meeting after this at the food trucks. One of the things that I hope to address, and I saw it tonight, the plats. These things take 5 minutes, sometimes 3. I wonder why we can't put them at the beginning of the meeting and let those people, rather than wait for the 30-minute ones, and we just knock those out first. Is there a reason we don't, or is there something we can possibly do if there's not a reason that we don't? And that's it. And then I noticed on the next item, it says July 19th, so I'm assuming July 5th is the official state holiday or federal holiday, so we're not meeting?
Correct.
And I don't know if it seems like we're voting on fewer and fewer things, so putting those plats at the beginning and getting them out of the way. And then, I didn't want to say that, and then our discussion parts that take a minute, putting those at the end, unless there's a legal reason.
So will I don't think that there's a legal reason to have things on the agenda in a particular order. There may be some logistical reasons why we're doing things, but we can revisit that. If there's a plat that's a ministerial duty that you have to approve, I'm not too sure there's a reason why we couldn't put it on a consent agenda. But if it calls for a public hearing, of course, it can't be on the consent agenda at that time. But I don't think that I've had that conversation, or I haven't had that conversation with planning staff, and I think that Martin, John, and I will be having it within the week.
And that's a great point. We used to put it on the consent agenda. I forgot about that. So, great point.
Thank you for our contact list. Martin, that was wonderful. Thank you.
One last thing. I owe an apology to everybody and Shelby. She sent out the minutes that we asked for in great detail, and I did not respond in time. So I apologize for that. You even called me to remind me, and I
She reminded me as well, and I
didn't get
I
it
didn't
done.
do
My
it.
apologies for that. It won't happen again.
And they
No
were great.
worries. I was a little late this past time, but we'll have them out this week.
But I wanted to mention something that the Pearland Parks is something I really love, and they did a big geocache. They hid 30 geocaches around the city. That's something, and I was reading about it, and I think if you have kids, this would be, if you don't know what geocache is, talk to me after class. But they had a very interesting little way to describe it. They said it was anyway. It's called the Pearland Geo Tour, and you have to look at it on an app. But it's awesome. They called it. Well, anyway, just look it up. If you have kids, it's worth looking up. So that's my commissioner's activity report. It has nothing to do with the Pearland Planning and Zoning Commission. It has to do with parks, but it's still great. So.
And it was actually a partnership in between the Visitor Center and Community Development in cooperation with utilizing the parks system. But
I still like it.
Hey, it's out there. Go find it.
Also, the KPB, is it Keep Pearland Beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
They're having a casino night the
Thursday.
26th. Well, I thought it was Saturday. Saturday night? The 26th, Saturday night. So if anybody wants to, I will buy tickets and maybe go.
Oh, it said be prepared to fall in love, and it was spelled with the word pair, which I thought was very clever. All right. And our next, anybody else? All right. It was wonderful.
Madam Chair, this is Mohammed. If you allow me just for a minute, I just want to bring subject to your attention. We have received application for a joint public workshop for a case, and we will be reaching out to all of you for a potential joint meeting with the City Council for that joint public workshop for a PD, possibly in the month of July.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed. That sounds great. And it was wonderful seeing
Thank you.
Commissioner Boswell. And it's nice that we're getting together and seeing each other. It's great. Our next Planning and Zoning regular meeting will be July 19th, 2021. Anything else? Anybody? Nope. Okay. If nothing else, meeting is adjourned, 9:34.